Hi, Marengo Mike here for Indiana Live with an important question for you. Do you think there are big problems within our federal government? If you do, stay tuned for this episode of Indiana Live because we at Convention of States have a solution as big as the problem.
Well, thanks, Marengo Mike. Thank you for introducing things for us this evening. I enjoy having him. I really hope to find more and more ways to utilize Marengo Mike. He's like I said, he's a new member to our group here in Indiana, and we really enjoy having him. So we're going to utilize him as much as possible. My name's Dale Parrish. I'm the state director for Convention of States here in Indiana, and I want to welcome you to our broadcast. We have a great broadcast for you tonight. I think you're really going to enjoy this. In our first segment tonight, we're going to have one of our district captains, young lady by the name of Melba Kaiser. Melba is going to bring to you her story. And I think you're going to find this to be very, very special. So we certainly think it is a special story. And I want her to present that to you and tell you her story this evening. Following that segment, we'll get into some general information on the state and how we're doing here in Convention of States in Indiana. Then we'll get into some of the basics of Convention of States, and then we'll wrap things up. So first of all, before we do that, before we get started here, I want to issue my standard warning. And that warning is, in the event that your screen would freeze up or go blank, please just consider, unfortunately, we've encountered a technical problem. And this can happen. So if that does occur, don't wait around for us to come back on, because we won't be coming back on. It just takes too long to get everything up and going again, and I don't want you to have to wait around that long. So if it happens, just plan on joining us again next Monday evening at 7 p.m. for our broadcast at that time. We're on every Monday evening at 7 p.m. So if things go bad, just close her down and plan on joining us next Monday evening. All right. Without further ado, I want to bring in Melba, and let me get her onto the into the broadcast here, and hopefully we'll be able to hear her okay. Hi, Melba.
Hi.
You do it. A chair adjustment there?
A little bit of a chair adjustment, yes.
Okay, all right. And I want to point out Melba's T-shirt that she's wearing. That's you just got that from the Convention of States store, right? Right.
Right.
Yeah. I know we've been coming out with a number of new T-shirts. Kind of geared towards some of the current headlines, but I really like that. That's We the People. That's a great T-shirt. Very good.
Yeah. I am not normally a T-shirt wearer. There's a lot of T-shirts I pass on to other people, but this one I'm very proud of, and I was happy to purchase it.
All right, great. Now, did you say you're wearing your Patriot pin also?
No, I said I will be wearing it at the event this weekend, the gun show.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. And we might as well put a plug in for that. We're going to have an information. Well, you want to talk about that a bit, Melba?
Sure. So we're hosting another event. This one is the Central Indiana Gun Show. We are going to be having a table at that, and basically looking for people that want more information on Convention of States, people that want to sign our petitions, We'll talk up to them about the number of states that have passed, the amount of supporters that we have, and why we need the Convention of States resolution.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Very, very. And that's a gun show, and that's located in Kokomo.
In Kokomo, Indiana.
All right.
This weekend, Saturday and Sunday.
All right. Great.
Here we go. Another chair adjustment.
Okay. Okay. Well, Melba, why don't you start off and tell us your story here, and we'll follow you along. So take it away.
So my maiden name is Melba Lydia Gonzalez. I was born in Cuba, and my family lived in Holguin, which is in the southeast corner of the island.
Okay.
Shortly after Fidel Castro started his revolution, my family started to take notice that maybe they didn't want to live under that type of government. A few things happened that I can remember as a child that affected their decision to eventually come to the United States. One which I don't remember because I was too young is that when the revolution was going on, there was a lot of fighting in the streets and shootings. So in order to keep me and my brother safe, my parents sent me off to be with my grandmother because they had a farm out in the country, and so we would be away from the gunfire. Some other things that I do remember are that my brother and I used to attend parochial schools. And shortly after Castro won and took over the government, he shut down the parochial schools. So that was one of the first things to go, was our freedom to express our religion and to learn under a religious system. Another thing that happened was that we were taking a vacation and we were on our way to Havana. And that was my father, my mother, my brother, and I in my dad's car, which he was very proud of. He had just recently purchased it about a year before. It was a Cadillac.
Oh, so, it was? Really? What do you remember what year it was?
58 Cadillac.
Exactly.
I have a picture of my dad standing in front of the car. So, yeah.
One question. No, I'm sorry. I should have asked this. When did the revolution actually start in
58.
Cuba? In 58?
1958, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So we were on our way to Havana, and not even halfway, I would say, when one of Castro's military captains and his men stopped our car. The captain wanted my dad's car. So at first he offered to buy it, and my dad said no. And then he tried to be a little bit more persuasive. And my father still said no, he had just bought the car and he wanted it. When it became evident that this man was not going to take no for an answer, my father said, why don't you let my wife and my children go on ahead? You and I can continue talking. So we went on ahead to Havana, met up with our family, but eventually the next day my father showed up without his car. So basically the captain had forced him to sell him his car.
So he did pay him for the car, but probably not at all what it was really worth, I would imagine, huh?
Right.
Wow, what a story. Oh my.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Seizure of private property. I would call that.
Yeah.
Then another memory that I have is that my father is a medical doctor. He is an eye doctor by training. He had his own practice in Cuba, and he's also a surgeon. So one evening, some soldiers came knocking at the door, dressed in their military garb, with weapons, and they come to our family home, and they're knocking on the door because one of the soldiers had something in his eye. And apparently he didn't want to go to a hospital. He decided it was best that my father take it out. So,
Wow.
you know, that kind of invasion of privacy was just too much. I remember that I remember their weapons very distinctly.
Yeah. How old were you as you on these memories that you have here? How old were you at this time?
Parochial school, I was in second grade when my parents pulled me out because they didn't want me going to the public schools.
Okay.
I don't really remember about my dad's car. The soldiers I was probably about 8 at the time.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So
All right.
I don't know whether the soldiers coming to our home was the last straw or whether it was just a compilation of all of these things going on. But my parents decided to come to the United States. At that time, there were a lot of professionals that had already left Cuba. So my dad was able to get us visas and send us here legally, my brother, my mother, and myself. But my dad was supposed to have stayed in Cuba until Castro would let him go. And he wanted, at that time, you were being forced to work in the sugarcane fields for a couple of years, as well as the fact that Castro took over my dad's private practice and all of the belongings therein. So
Really?
he also took over the family home was also supposed to belong to the state. So my dad decided
your dad had to work in the sugarcane fields?
he was supposed to, but
Okay.
what he did was actually bribe someone to smuggle him into the Uruguayan embassy, where he waited for 15 months to get the visa to be able to come to the United States legally.
Okay.
And please forgive me while I do another camera adjustment.
Okay.
Okay.
Now there was your father who was
Yeah.
a doctor, eye doctor.
Yeah.
And he was going to had Castro had his way, he was going to be working in a sugarcane field.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So that is why I believe that with all of those things going on, all of those things that happened to my family personally, I would consider us asylum seekers in the United States. So like not any other, but like probably most other asylum seekers, you hope to eventually be able to go back to your own country. So for many years that I know that was the family discussions that I was hearing. We were hoping to go back to Cuba. After about 8 years, my parents saw that we were not going to be able to go back. Castro was not going to be taken out of power. So they decided to become United States citizens because they really love this country and love this government.
Okay.
At that time, when they became citizens, I could have become a citizen under them because I was under the age of 18. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to study on my own and go through the process on my own. So at the age of 19, then, I decided to do what I needed to do, which was basically go through a kind of a civics course. Luckily for me, I had just graduated high school, so I still remembered a lot of the history that I had been taught. And but I had to do things like basically memorizing the Pledge of Allegiance and the preamble to the Constitution, go through a quiz. Of course, I already knew English at the time because I had been going to school here. And so I was eventually sworn in at the age of 19.
So you came to the United States in 1962. You were 8.5 years old.
Yep.
I had flashed that up. And then you eventually became a citizen.
Yes.
At the age of 19.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And Where were you? Where were you when you became a citizen? Where were you located?
I was in New Jersey, so I was sworn in the court in Newark, New Jersey.
Newark, New Jersey.
Newark, New Jersey. Mm-hmm.
Is that then? That is where your parents settled in?
Well, with my dad's, when he came over from the States, even though he was a doctor already practicing in Cuba and already performing surgeries, he had to take the medical boards here, and then he had to do his residency, and then he had to do an internship. And then he was able to be.
How old was he when this all happened? How old was he?
He was 50 years old when he came.
50 years old, and he had to go through the
actually more than that, because my dad was born in 1911 and he came in 1963.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was little, he was over 50 then, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he had to go through all that again.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So he went through all that and then was able to then continue then practicing as an eye doctor, right?
Yes, he worked for the Veterans Administration.
That's right. That's what
his time. Yes, until he retired at the age of 74.
At 74.
At 74.
I didn't ask you the other night. Are your parents still living, or?
No, my mother passed away in 2009, and my father passed away in 2010.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Wow, what a
story. But all of that time, once they decided to become citizen, it was full speed ahead, supporting the United States, believing in the Constitution, always talking about your duty as a citizen.
Okay.
Just things like standing up for the flag, like pledging allegiance to the flag, supporting the Constitution, voting during elections, serving for jury duty. All of those things were things that they believed in and that they taught me to believe in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's great. Okay. Well, then I know you mentioned that then a lot of time passed since then, since you became a citizen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what was developing you during these decades that were going by?
Well, I kept believing in elections. I kept believing in our politicians, but I saw as the decades went by that issues were not getting resolved. I didn't feel they were acting in the best interest of the people. I didn't feel that they were holding up to what the Constitution promised. And what really, I think the last straw for me, if I may use that, is when I started hearing things that sounded a lot like the same things that were being said in Cuba by Castro. For example, I distinctly remember that one of the things that Castro promised was free higher education.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, he did. Education for everyone.
Okay.
Another of the things that he was talking about, it was ending racism and a better life economically for everyone, so less of a social spread. So when I started hearing these things coming up, it just really set off red flags. I mean, just huge red flags for me.
I bet.
And that's when I said, I really need to find a way to become involved and do something so that I can fight back against this and get back to the government that I grew up under, that I believe in, and that my family brought me here for. So I started volunteering for different organizations, and then I came across grassroots group here. And at that time, Convention of States, the resolution had not passed in Indiana, but I was really very fortunate that I ran into the two people that were heading up that effort in Indiana. And I said, I'm in. I will volunteer and help any way that I can. And I've just been a COS supporter ever since.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, you say you got involved in a conservative group. What was the name of that group again?
That's the Hamilton County Grassroots Conservatives.
Okay.
And at that point, the two people that were trying to pass the resolution in Indiana were serving as vice presidents in the board of that group.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were president of that group, right?
I've been president for the last 2 years.
Right, right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you found the Convention of States, and so I assume you after you learned what we were trying to do, this kind of really fit in with what your love of the Constitution and the importance that you felt the Constitution played in your life. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I have no patience with anyone that will not stand up for the flag. I have no patience for anyone that it bothers me when I hear kids these days that don't know the basics, the civic basics of the Constitution and their government. That really bothers me. Maybe because I couldn't take it for granted because I wasn't born into it. I chose to become a citizen. Right. It wasn't something that was my right of birth.
Well, that's great. Mel, that's a wonderful story. I really want to thank you for taking the time to share that with us. My goodness, what a story! What a story! And so we're obviously we're very happy to have you in our group. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but Melba is a district captain. What are you, District 29, is it?
District 29, mostly Noblesville.
Yeah, yeah. And she's doing a terrific job.
Thank you.
We just recognized her for her efforts as district captain, gave her a little extra recognition. And so we're very happy to have you, Melba. And I want to thank you sincerely for coming on and sharing your story with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
And you can adjust the seat some more. So so you have a good evening, Melba.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, folks. Well, we went a little longer there in that segment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to do an abbreviated version this evening, and just I want to just give you some information about what's happening here in the state of Indiana, and if I can get this enlarged so that you can see it better. Hopefully I can do that. So here I'm going to try it one more time, and hopefully you'll be able to get a better viewing on your screen. So looks like I'm having some problems here with getting this done. And let's try this one more time. Now I think we're going to go. All right. Well, we're going to, I wanted to give you a quick update on some things here in the state of Indiana. Of course, we have our main website, which is conventionofstates.com. Now, you'll hear us from time to time make reference to this website. It's a national website, but it has a wealth of information on it. So anyone that is initially interested in Convention of States, that's where we want to direct you first to go to, and that's conventionofstates.com. Now, embedded in that national website, we have a state website page, which is conventionofstates.com/Indiana. Obviously, a more focused approach or look at Indiana. Social media platforms, we're on a number of different platforms. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, Convention of States, Indiana. As a matter of fact, this broadcast is coming to you through that Facebook page. We also have a YouTube channel, COS Indiana. This is very much an educational channel on YouTube. We have PowerPoint presentations there. We have recordings of these broadcasts. We also have links to a podcast that our legislative liaison does, Paul Phillips, who you've seen on this broadcast many times. But Paul does a podcast called The Free to Be Free. These are just excellent podcasts, and he'll take a particular issue, a particular topic, and talk about that topic. As a matter of fact, we've used his podcast as resource material on a number of our broadcasts. We're also on Twitter, #COS Indiana, Instagram, Convention of States Indiana. We're also on LinkedIn. So just about any social media platform, you will be able to find Convention of States. Find us here in Indiana. Just to give you some quick numbers, in 2018, we surpassed 30,000 supporters here in the state of Indiana. We're striving here in 2019 to hit 40,000. We have about 2,900 volunteers, people that have indicated a willingness to help out as needed. So we have about 2,900 people that have indicated they would be willing to volunteer. Now we have about 40 people in leadership positions, and this is very important. I want to stress this, that if you have any interest, any desire to get more involved in Convention of States here in Indiana, I would encourage you, here's this website again, this national website. I would encourage you to go to conventionofstates.com, our national website, click on the menu selection, Take Action, and scroll down and look at the different volunteer opportunities that we have. If you find one that's of interest to you, go ahead and open it up and read about it. If you're really interested in it, go ahead and make application. Now, you're not obligated in any way, but when you make application, then your name comes up on a report that I see every day, as well as a few others. And one of us then will be in contact with you to further discuss your interest in that particular position. So I would encourage you once again, if you have any inclination, any desire at all to get involved here in Convention of States in Indiana, go to that national website, conventionofstates.com, click on the menu selection, take action, and go down and look at the different volunteer opportunities we have. We would love to have more people join us in a leadership role. All right, we're going to skip the basics of Convention of States this evening. We've, of course, we try to cover those in every broadcast, but sometimes the agenda just doesn't work out to where we can take everything in, because we want to try and keep our broadcast to a total of about 30 minutes. So, so tonight we're going to keep it that way. I want to recognize some people that we have viewing with us tonight. James Cressy is a gentleman that has joined us many times, and I think James is from Missouri, if I'm correct. But James, thank you for joining us again this evening. Appreciate you being on with us tonight. Well, I always like to close. Well, before I close, I want to tell you about our broadcast coming up next Monday evening, the 21st. We're going to have the first in a series of broadcasts And the topic is going to be constitutional literacy. Now, the young lady making these presentations, I've introduced her in prior broadcasts to you, Debbie Stewart. Debbie is a homeschool teacher here in Indiana. And this is a program that she teaches in one of her government classes in her homeschooling. Now, the program that she presents, Constitutional Literacy, was a program developed by one of our co-founders, Michael Ferris. Michael Ferris developed this program. I think there's about 25 chapters to it. And Debbie has taken the program and she is then teaching this program in her homeschool classes, government classes. So we've convinced her and she's been very gracious about this. She's going to present this program to us here on our broadcast, and she's going to do like maybe a chapter of broadcast. So this will go on for some months, and hopefully we can get her on more frequently, maybe more than once a month, as her schedule allows her. So we're going to start next Monday evening with the first chapter, the introduction to the series, and I strongly urge you to. If you want to learn about the more about the Constitution, many of us in Convention of States have gone through this program. It's Michael Ferris made this available to us in Convention of States, so many of us have gone through this. But I'm looking forward to going through it again because I love learning about the Constitution. So hopefully, put that on your calendar and tune in next Monday evening at 7:00. For our first in the series of constitutional literacy. Now, another co-founder, in addition to Michael Ferris, is Mr. Mark Meckler, and Mark is our current president of Convention of States. And one of his favorite quotes, and I always use this to close out our broadcast, but one of his favorite quotes is that he says, our country is facing a fundamental question. And this fundamental question is not, what should we do? The fundamental question is, who will decide? And basically, the question facing us is a two-word question, very simply, who decides? Well, we at Convention of States believe that we, the people, should have a greater say-so in who decides in our federal government. So that's what we're all about, we the people. Thank you, folks, for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed our broadcast. And remember, tune in next Monday evening, 7 p.m. Constitutional literacy will be our topic. So hope to see you then. Have a good evening, everyone.